Alright guys, so today we're going to be showing you how to install a dash camera, and in particular we're going to be showing you on a hatch vehicle. Today we're working on a Toyota RAV4. This is a hatch with an opening back window. The reason I'm going to show you this today is it's a little bit harder than some of the sedan vehicles out there, but it'll give you a good idea of how to get it installed correctly. If you are going to pay someone else to do it, this is what it'll end up looking like and this is what's involved. Or if you want to give it a go yourself, this will be how you would do it on this style of vehicle anyway. So today we're going to be using this. This is a Thinkware dash camera. These are a new kit they've just released. It's called the F770D, which is actually a full kit in the one box. So previously you used to be able to buy them all separately. This is a dual kit with the front and rear camera. These are actually a really nice camera. They're a very sleek looking style. They are full HD. You can operate them from an app. They have an adjustable lens on the front of them, and they have really good night vision, and they're not too expensive. I think this whole kit, we're selling these for about $4.99 for the front, rear, and it also comes with the hardwire harness that you need to install it if you are going to take advantage of the motion detection. So you do have to not use the cigarette lighter if you do want the motion detection. So we're going to show you how to wire that in correctly today, so that if you're not at your vehicle, it does light up and record as people walk past or vehicles walk past. So this is everything you're going to get in this kit. It's going to have a rear camera, so just a small camera here for the rear, a front camera, a cable from front to the rear, which is just a micro USB, and then this is the hardwire harness that you are going to need. It is quite simple in terms of the wiring. It's mainly the installation or the running of the cables that takes the time on this, but this is just red, yellow and black, which is just power, earth and ignition. So they actually say on there, so that's battery, that's constant power. Red is accessories, so that's just an accessory point where when you turn the car on, it turns the dash camera on, and black is just a simple earth. So let's go to town and install that today. I'm going to move up the front first. We're going to start pulling apart some of the paneling before we go to the rear, and then we're going to start from the rear to the front. But let's get some of the panels off first to make it easy to run our cables. Your first step to any installation with a dash camera, guys, is actually working out where you're going to mount it before you start pulling panels apart. Now, this has the little mount here that came in the box on the Thinkware dash camera, so I'll just get that off there. It is just a little clip-on side clipping in 3M tape, double-sided tape on it. That's actually going to mount on the windscreen. Now, this was aimed to put it in the center somewhere on the vehicle, but what you really want to be checking is how the mount will actually come off. So if that's mounted on the screen and it's going to slide off to the left or right, you need to be able to know how that's going to work. So this one here, you're going to slide it right to pull it off should you need to get it off. So you need to make sure you've got room to pull it to the right. You've also got the SD card slot here, so you still need to be able to get to that should you need. If you can slide it off, it doesn't really matter. You can go up real tight against anything on the window. And just be aware that on this style of camera, the lens is actually here. So whilst you may mount it in the middle, the lens is going to slightly be on the left, but that's not a big deal. It'll actually give you a really wide angle on this sort of camera as well. Now, the last thing you want to look at before you decide where you're going to mount it is where the cables are going to come out. So on this, they're on the left-hand side here. Pull this cover off, and that's got the power cable and the micro USB, which is just the cable that attaches the front to the rear, because the front unit is the main unit here. It controls everything, and the rear is just a basic camera. So you need to be aware of that. So I'll quickly undo these cables and I'll show you why it's important. And we'll show you when we actually do this, how we're going to do it nice and neat. But we're just going to be checking for camera cable locations at this stage, and we're going to put this in. Now, something to be aware of on a lot of these dash cameras out here, there is two different ends to this cable. One's a right angle, one's a straight angle. Okay, so this is a straight one, obviously the right angle. The reason for that is the right angle will go to the front of the camera, so it actually mounts under this cover correctly. Now you just have to be aware of that when you're running the cable from front to rear. You don't want to get that wrong, so that's how it'll come out the top. Now we're going to tape this up nice and neat for when it's going to sit on the front windscreen, but for now we're just going to show you why we're doing this. We're going to put it here and we're going to see where the cables are going to run, okay? Because you want to make it as neat as possible. So on this, they're coming out just on the left-hand side or the passenger side here. We're going to mount it right in the middle with the cables straight up into the roof lining, so it's nice and discreet. Now, you could put this higher up on the left, right up here if you wanted to, because the camera is on the left hand side and goes straight into the hood lining, but be aware that would be further to the left hand side. So we're going to put it down here in the center, run the cables nice and neat up to the top. It's going to sit behind the rear vision mirror here, so it's not going to distract the driver or anything, and it's going to get good vision on the passenger side and the driver's side really easy. Okay, so now I know where I'm going to mount it. I'm actually going to go ahead and start pulling off some of the panels, and we're going to run the cables from the front to the rear first, so that when we put this on the windscreen, we can just run it down and power it up really easily. All right, so I'm going to make sure I know my cable is going to run across this hood lining, so that's easy to put the cables behind there. So we're just going to pull this little section out of the way on this vehicle. We're also going to pull this pinch weld off on the left hand side here and pop these panels forward. So these are really easy to pop forward on most Toyotas or Japanese vehicles. That will allow me to run the cables down here. I will end up pulling the glove box out. So if you do have a glove box, these are really easy to pull out on a Japanese vehicle. You just sort of pop them up and out, and that will actually help us run the cables up to the center of the vehicle. And then again, we use a non-marring pry bar. We're going to power it from behind the stereo, because you can really do this on most cars quite easily, being the fact that they have power accessories and ignition, so they're very easy to find it there. You could find it at the fuse box at other vehicles, but we are simply going to do it behind the stereo for the ease of everyone out there that has different vehicles. Very easy to locate those three things out of the radio. So we're going to use a non-marring pry bar. We're just going to put this under some of the plastic panels here to help us get these off. And again, we use those just so we don't scratch anything. Oh, here we go. We're going to pull the silver bit off first on this vehicle. So you see that there. So we're just going to pull these vents out on either side. Very easy to do. So this is about a 2014 year model vehicle. So most new cars are pretty easy to pull apart. This one here's got some 10mm bolts on the radio. So like I said, this is a RAV4. This is a Toyota. 2014, 2015 model. There's a 10mm socket on either side to loosen that off. Be aware, if you are going to pull the radio out, you may lose your radio presets, so just be aware of that. You will have to set them back up. That's not a big deal though. Again, this pry bar is just going to loosen this off because there's some bolts behind here, I think. Yep, very easy. Little button here to undo this panel. And again, 2 more bolts, and this is virtually all the radio out. And the reason I'm doing the radio and pulling the panels apart first, it's going to make it easier for me to run my cables from the rear to the front and give me plenty of room. Okay, there we go. And that is the radio out. So we are going to pull that all the way out, and it is going to have a couple of plugs. There we go, a bit tight. If you are going to do this, make sure you don't have any security codes on your stereo. If you do have them, make sure you know what the code is. Generally, it's in your user manual. All right, there we go. So that is the radio out, and we're going to be able to test for power. This is the main power plug on this vehicle, but it will vary on most vehicles out there. But you should be able to tell. If you wanted to tell which one had the power accessories and earth, you could actually have your stereo or your vehicle on, and the one where you unplug it and the radio turns off is obviously your power one. So that's an easy way to tell which plug your wiring is going to be in. So I know on this one, being a Toyota, they are all the same from 2006 onwards with this style of plug. So we'll show you how to test for that in just a moment. But let's run our cables from front to rear and mount them all up before we power it up. All right guys, I'm going to show you a couple of different options for running the cables from the rear to the front, depending on what tools you have available. Will make it a little bit easier for different people, depending on what you've got available to yourself, if you are going to run it yourself. Now, this sort of vehicle, the reason it's actually a little bit harder on a hatch vehicle, if you were to pay someone to do it, you'd probably charge a little bit extra. I mean, when you're in our store, we used to charge probably about $150 extra because of the time it would take to do this, to do it properly, okay? So some people just have their cables coming here and wrap it up to here, but it is harder if you do it the correct way, because you've got to run through these rubber grommets, and that will actually keep all your wiring nice and factory and nice and neat. So if you're paying a professional, that's what you should be looking for. It can be quite hard on different vehicles. So you can actually pull these rubbers apart or pull them out. Again, we use a non-marring pry bar. We finally made these available on our website. They're not expensive. I think you can buy 4 for about $15. They're very, very affordable to buy. But we're going to run our cable through there, and it's going to come out here so we can mount our camera here. Now it's important because if you just had a cable from here to here, when this opens and closes, it's going to get tangled up and it's going to come loose, okay? So you want to make sure, if you're doing it properly, run it through these factory locations. You're not going to have any issues, no water leakage, nothing like that, okay? So this sort of paneling on a Toyota is very easy to get off. These are just going to pop off. There we go. Just sort of support it, don't bend it so much, just so it doesn't break. And there you go, we've got our panel off. And as you can see, just run your cable straight through here and mount your camera up on the rear. So we're going to mount the camera, then we're going to start running the cables. I'm going to show you how to do that really well. We are going to do things here, pull this rubber off. This is pinch weld. This is really easy to pull off. It's designed to come off. And as you can see here, you can pull your lining down and you can actually get to your cables through that rubber grommet. You can see my fingers running through just there as well. So that's how we're going to run our cable. Then we're just going to get it from the rear to the front. One of the things you get to see on different vehicles, guys, is see this rubber hole. This is quite easy to run cables through. There is already existing cables there. It does get a bit tight, but if you're on the back end side here, you can see it's actually sealed. So you can actually slice that open. There's a little bit of tape around this, so you can actually just slice that tape off if you've got a knife. Very easy to just sort of slice that open. Just there, and you can actually pull the tape off. Excuse my fingers for a second and I'll show you once it's off. There we go. You can actually pull that off and then you can see, there you go. That will actually open up the little rubber grommet, okay, so you can run the cables through. Now, that is very tight, so there you go. It's got left and right. Sorry, let's get this off properly. There you go. So if you come around and have a look at that now, you see this rubber section? You can actually open that up. Now we can run our cables through there. Another way you can do it is you can actually snip a little hole in this, but just make sure you don't do it above this seal section. Do it below that seal section so it's inside and it's not going to leak any water, okay? Okay, so you've got to remember the straight angle for these goes to the rear. The right angle is at the front because we just showed you that at the very beginning of the video. Now, the reason they use the straight at the back, it's much easier to get through these little locations rather than a right angle one. It would actually get stuck in there very easy and makes it super hard to run. But we're gonna run this up through that hole firstly, so you can actually just put it through very easily there. And there's two ways we can do this now. We're gonna show you one that's probably a little bit easier for a lot of people out there that don't have a lot of equipment. You can use a cable tie, so you can actually push a cable tie through that grommet. It is a bit flexible, and that will help you to run the cables. So it will take a little bit of time to feed that through, but let's have a look here, see if we can get it through quickly. Okay, can't really get it through that. There it is there. So you can actually see it coming through. I'm going to use my prybar and see if we can get that out of there. And there we have it. So there's the cable tie there. And the reason we run a cable tie is just a little bit thinner to run through than if you're trying to push that cable through. And now that you've got that through, you could use a little bit of lubricant and you can actually tape this to this and pull it back through. So if you tape that onto there, you should be able to pull it back through. Now, if you have available to yourself, we do use something like this. This is a little bit easier to push through. It's just a little plastic pull through is what we call it. We actually make this out of we slice down a larger bit of plastic into a thinner section, and then we just push that through and it makes it a little bit easier. But cable ties are readily available to everyone. I suggest using one of those if you are going to attempt this yourself. All right, so here we go. We are going to tape this on, and you really want to give this a good taping because once you start pulling it through and it gets tight, they can come off very easily. And you want to pull it or put it as straight as possible, so when you're pulling it through, you're not going to damage the cables. They're not really hard to damage, but you know, everything to prevent it would be better. Some lubricant if you want, just spray it on there. It's a little bit of, this is a little bit of water or soapy water, and that will help run the cables through that section there, okay? And we're gonna see if we can get this in first go, but this could take you a couple of goes to do, depending. Let's have a look here. There we go. Got it in one go. So it didn't take too long to do on this car. not the hardest to do in the world, which is good. Then we can push that little rubber grommet back into the location, locks in place. We can continue to run this up and out, and then we're just going to remove the tape and the cable, and we've got that done and dusted. So very easy. Make sure that seats properly for waterproofing, and that is going to sit there, and it's going to mount up for our camera. And this is how it would look. We're going to mount that up there like this, either left or right, depending on which way is the right way around for the camera. And we're going to aim to have the camera in the center. So we would actually line this up with the center of the vehicle, which we can see the antenna there, and we mount it like that. And then we would have the cable come around, plug into there, straight onto the covers there, so it's nice and easily hidden, and it looks very neat. Now, I'm not going to stick that on yet because I'm going to run the camera and plug it all in first to make sure it's the right way around, because you may go this way and we spin the camera this way to look out the window, or it may be this way and we'll face it out. So we're going to power it up first, but we'll just run the cable. Now we're going to run from front to rear. We're going to show you how to do that. It will vary on different vehicles, but we'll show you two methods. So one of the ways you can actually do this if you don't have a lot of equipment is you can just run the cables along here and tuck it behind these panels. Okay, these panels will actually just clip off on a lot of vehicles. So you see there, you pull them forward and run it all along the edging and pull the rubbers off around the door, run that right up to the front. So this is going to run up to that very front camera. Now if you do pull these panels off like this and you see a clip still in there, you do have to pull that out so it goes back on. I'll show you quickly. Guys, if it's actually stuck in there, just pull it off, use a pry bar, use your pliers. If you're going to use pliers, don't cut it. Slides back onto the clip like that. So when you do push it back in, that will clip in place. So you can run that from front to rear like that and go around it. And example is like that, and you'll follow that along. Very time consuming, but not too bad to do. It's not that hard. Now, for you guys out there that want to try it a different way, you don't want to run it exactly along every single ledge there. What we used to do in our store a lot is we used to get this. This is a long push bar. This is a piece of material, just a rubber piece that you can actually get from your local hardware store, and you can actually just slide it in. And when you slide this in, you've got to get it long enough to go from the front to the rear of the car. But you can actually just push it all the way through to the front of your vehicle. So it's quite, you got to move it around a little bit, but you can actually get it all the way through to the front, and you can actually just pull that out from the very front of the vehicle. Now, you've got to really aim it. You've got to look at your roof. You've got a sunroof, that becomes a little bit harder, and you've also got to watch the handles and things. But on a lot of vehicles, this is probably the easiest way to run it from front to rear. It literally used to take us about 5 minutes to do each vehicle this way. But you know, this car here is a little bit more difficult. It's got a lot of ledges in it, so I'm probably going to run it the other way on this vehicle. But that gives you an idea of how you would run it on another vehicle, and we'd push that through, do what we did with the cable tie, tape it to the end and pull it back, and we'd run the cable from front to rear, or rear to front, whichever way is easier. So that is definitely one way for you guys out there that don't know how to actually run it. But we're going to run it manual on this one. It's going to be much easier to do it this way. So you can see here, guys, just run it along the passenger side, around any of those paneling. Very easy to do. Just pull that pinch weld off. It's really designed to come off quite simply, and you can hold the cables behind there and push it all back in. Cable here into the center of the vehicle, or just over the A-pillar, and if I wind it up, you've got a lot of extra cable here which we're actually going to have to hide away, which is fine. But this is on this side of the A-pillar, ready to mount in the center. Now before we go any further, you want to grab the camera at this stage, and we're going to mount the camera at right now actually, basically. So it just saves us running 2 lots of cables. So we're actually going to plug that in, because we can plug it in now because it's along this lining side. And we're going to tape that up. So we're going to run the cables like this, nice and neat, next to each other. We use this is a tesa tape. It's a cloth tape, just like what they use from the OEM factory or from the standard factory for vehicles. This is like I said, it's a cloth tape. It's called tesa. It is available on our website. It is a little bit more expensive than typical plastic tape, but it gives it that genuine look and feel. So when we tape these up, you just want to hold the cables near each other so it's nice and neat, so that when you're taping, it's going to look okay, because you are going to see this little section of the vehicle with these cables, and this is really all you're going to see. So you want to make it look as neat as possible for the section there. Now, as you can see here, I'm just going to tape it up quickly. Nice little loops, keeping it together. All right, so that's probably going to be enough, this cloth tape. So that's what it's going to look like. So it sits nice and factory. So if you wanted, you can actually tape it in there so it looks a little bit neat. There we go. Now, we're going to mount the camera up, and we're just going to test that and hold it up against the window to see if it's taped up enough. Yes, we have. So that's very easy to do. Now we are going to tape it. So we're going to pull this double-sided tape off. Thinkware are really good because they actually use black double-sided tape here, so it looks nice on the other side of the window. And we're going to line this up centered, nice and neat, and we're going to put it right near the top because we can slide it out, so it's not going to matter. And there we go. All right, so once it's on, I'm going to pull it off, and you're just going to press this here, and don't press too hard against your window because you can break them. But just going to make sure it's like on there nice and tight. And then we're going to clip this back on, okay? So there we have it. Now, we can run our cables across the hood lining and into this back section, so we can run it down into the center console, and we can hide those cables away. So I'm just going to put this around the airbag here, so nice and neat. We're going to pull it up into the center hood lining, so you can actually just pull that back, so nice and neat there. Very easy to do. They're designed to pull back a bit and tuck them up nice and neat. Sit that back up, and again, if you need to, you can use your pry bar. You're not going to damage anything here. The hood lining's got a bit of flex in them, and it's going to go along and tidy that up so it's sitting right behind the hood lining and it holds it in place. Okay, guys, let's take a couple of seconds to do. There we go. All right, nice and neat. Cables are hidden. We can actually pull this around now, and we're going to run these down into the center so we can actually push this back in. There we go. Nice and neat. Maple is starting to go back on, so make sure that's on properly. And then we're going to run these down so we can hide our cables out of the way. There we go. And we're going to run these into the center behind the stereo, and that's the reason we pulled the glove box out at the beginning of the video. Just gives us a bit of room. So make sure these are all clipped on properly. And there you go, guys. It looks very neat. So let me just show you on the left hand side here. I'll grab the camera. There you go. That looks very, very neat, very discreet, very easy to do. And if we were to see that from the outside, all right, so that's the camera there on the outside. You're not going to really see any cables. Nice and neat. And don't forget to pull that little plastic off the front of the lens. We're going to do that at the very end, just to save putting our fingerprints on the camera lens there. So what we're going to do, we're going to run the cables around the back of the glove box here. A little bit tight. Hang on, let me get these through. These massive, massive fuse holders. There we go. That's one section. Another section. Pull all the cables through. Mount them nice and neat. You can tape them up together if you believe you need to tape them up together or keep them together. So we are going to do that. So we're going to tape it like this. A little bit of tape every now and then just so it doesn't come loose. When you run these behind your glove box, you want to be taping them to other cables that are behind there to keep them out of the way of when your glove box opens and closes, okay? So, example, we've got this here, we run it behind, there's all these cables at the rear here. We can tuck them behind those cables, like that. All right, and you can use some cable ties or you can use the tape. I prefer to use tape because it's more flexible, easier to remove, and you don't have sharp sections when you cut the cable ties. So you can actually just tape it up. Looks very genuine then. They hide out of the way, so when your glove box is being run or when your glove box is opening and closing, you're not going to actually get it caught. So run it behind things, tie them up nice and neat, and when we're done, we can run it up into the center behind the stereo. And there you have it, guys. So there's the power, ignition, We're going to show you how to test for that quickly. I'm just going to tidy this up, put the glove box back in. Pretty simple to do from there. So, like I said at the start of the video, guys, where you want to test for your power, like I said, have your radio on, unplug all the plugs one at a time. The one that you lose the power on will generally give you the idea that the power is in that connector. Now, all radios out there have power, earth, and ignition, except for some of the European cars, such as VW. Sometimes they use what's known as CAN bus or firmware to turn their radios on. So those sort of vehicles, you will have to run to the fuse box in order to do those. Japanese, Korean, most American cars, they will have a power earth ignition. Okay, so we know this is a connector. We're just pulling back the sheathing here so we can connect the cables, and we do need a power accessories and an earth. And what we're going to do is we're going to test for power first. So we're going to have the vehicle turned off. We're going to find an earth with our test light, or you can use a multimeter as well. And an earth is just anything metal. All right, so once we've got on something metal, you're going to test all these pins, and the easiest way is just test from the front. Oh, there you go. First up is the power. You can see that test light will light up because there's power there because we're on earth, okay? And you test every single pin. All right, so we know it's that wire there. Okay, that's the constant earth. So here, the thick blue one is the power. Sorry, I said earth then, but I meant power. And that's done. Then the next step, you want to turn the car on, just one click to accessories. So we're just going to turn this one on, one step, and you're going to test for whichever one comes on then. So here we go, there it is there. And if you want to double check that, we can turn the car off and it will turn off. There you go, turned off. Okay, so the second pin in, so the gray wire here is accessory. So there's your three wires: accessory, power, and earth can go onto metal. You can actually test for earth in this plug as well, but if you're not 100% sure, don't use the plugs for earth, because speakers will actually indicate an earth a little bit as well. So if you're unsure, just tap it onto the metal on the vehicle under a bolt, okay? Because you've got this little spade terminal ready to go anyway. So we're going to solder this up. We're going to cut those wires and solder it, and I'll quickly show you how to do that as well. So we're just going to strip these guys, do a little bit of stripping. Someone can throw dollar bills if they want. All right, so be careful if you're stripping these. Use proper strippers if you're not very experienced, and do your powers and your earth separately, one at a time, so you don't actually short anything out. If you do short something out, it'll actually just blow a fuse, so just be careful. That's if you don't have the radio plugged in. So don't really do this with the radio plugged in, is another precaution, because you can actually damage the radio in that circumstance. And there we go, solder that up. So it's just a battery powered soldering iron, so it will take a couple of seconds to heat up. And when you're soldering, if you ever want to know how to solder really well, is you want to actually hold the soldering iron behind the wire to heat up the actual wire you're going into, and then you go from the other side and through the wire. Okay, so sort of start it heating and run it through. That way you're going to get a really solid solder without having any broken connections. Okay, so there you go. All right, be careful not to drip in the car. It's just putting down plastic if you've never soldered before. Tape these up nice and neat. In case you're wondering, the yellow is the constant power on the Thinkware dash cameras, and the red is the accessories. They do have little tags on them. I did show that at the start of the video, but if you're unaware, just reiterating it there for you. This is a proper set pair of strippers, so I know this is an earth, so I'm actually going to use this as an earth. But if you're, like I said, not sure, strongly suggest putting it on the body of the vehicle, and we're going to solder that onto there. But like I just did there, you're going to tape up your powers and earth, or your powers and accessories first, so you don't short anything. And once we've actually connected this on, we're going to tape it up so it's nice and neat and restore that sheathing on, and then it's back to genuine style. All right, so there we go, nice and neat. All right, cables are on. We're going to tape those together so it looks nice and neat. sheathing back on. And there we have it, guys. That looks nice and neat, and if you want, you can continue to tape that around just so you've got it at a stage where you're happy with it. The good thing about this sort of cloth tape, it actually allows the cables to move a lot rather than plastic tape. So plastic tape gets a bit rigid. But there you go, guys. So that's all powered up now. So we could actually turn the car on. That should turn the camera on if the car is not too low powered. If you're going to do this, make sure you've got any interior lights off. If you do have doors open, because you can flatten your battery, I probably should have let you know that at the start, but just be aware of that. And we're going to plug in the rear camera. We're going to put all this back together. Firstly, we're going to turn it on, make sure it does turn on.
Continuous recording will now start.
All right. Are you filming? Yeah. All right, there you go, guys. So that is actually turned on. It'll come up with some lights. It'll search for GPS. You'll hear it. It'll tell you to insert the memory card if you have not inserted the memory card, and you can return it back to normal. So there you go, just GPS connected. So that's very easy to do, guys. Not very hard. But just within your skill level, it's up to you guys. That shows you how you would do a hatch vehicle properly. We are going to put the stereo back in, quickly connect this to our phone so we can check the rear camera, and we're going to mount that up quickly and show you as well. So guys, now we're actually going to download the dash camera app. This one is called Thinkware. So depending on the phone or the system that you have, it will be something. There we go, there it is there. I'm just going to quickly enter this password and we'll get this done. Hang on. Alright, so we're going to download the viewer. So this is a really good dash camera because you can connect it to your phone via Wi-Fi when you're in the car, and you can download footage straight to your phone, so you don't have to keep pulling the SD card in and out. You can check it on your phone, adjust settings, things like that. Very easy to do. So we're just going to turn the car back on. If you can turn that on for me, please. And so this is the app, for example. It's got your continuous recording, which is your everyday driving. This one does have a shock sensor so that if there is an accident or harsh braking, it actually stores it and doesn't override those settings. And you've also got your motion detection overnight, so it's very, very cool. You can change all that on here. And what you got to do is actually go to your Wi-Fi and set that up quickly with the dash camera once it's turned on.
Recording will now start. GPS connected.
Now it's turned on. There's a Wi-Fi button.
Wi-Fi enabled.
Turn the Wi-Fi on. That takes a couple seconds to do. We're actually going to go into our Wi-Fi settings, and you will see dash camera rock up. So here we go, Thinkware dash camera. I think the password on this is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Yep, 1 to 9. It'll say this in the manual. I mean, you could look this up. It's not something that you need to worry about. And we're then going to open up the app.
Connected to a smartphone, recording stops.
So it actually stops recording while you use the dash camera. Okay, and we can do a live view. Okay, so you can actually see it here, and this will actually give you your view, so you can actually adjust the angle of the camera then. And oh Jesus, we just knocked it off. So there's a little connector on the side up here which you can turn. So let me get a little tool here, and we can turn this, and you can see the angle changing, and you want to line up that green line to your bonnet. So there we go. That's virtually on the front of the bonnet. Very good. So this footage is HD. You do need to pull this plastic off the front once you've completed. There we go, and she's off. It is buffering here because it is a live view, but we're actually going to connect the rear camera quickly now, and we can take this to the rear and we can look at it while we connect it. So let's go do that. We'll actually walk around and do it. Okay, so we're at the rear of the vehicle now, guys, and we've actually connected or plugged in the rear camera. You can do this. Do it with the vehicle actually off, because it will need to reboot the camera to actually detect it. Now that's the front footage here, but at the top right, you can actually touch this button and turn it around. and you're going to get the rear vision. So you want to be able to make sure this is the correct way up. So if we're going to stick it this way, you can see here it is upside down, so it's actually got to go this way and look out the rear like that. Okay, and that's going to be the correct way around. So the reason is you can actually shut this door. It's a little bit confusing while you're looking at the roof, but if we spin this around, so there you go, we're actually the right way around now. So when we shut that door, you can adjust the angle, but you just want to make sure you've got this left and right the correct way. All right, so you're going to stick it on. So if you do get it wrong, don't stress, you can pull it off and re-stick it, but it's just always easier to stick it the first time the correct way, because the tape is always better the first time around, like any tape. We're going to adjust that angle once we've got the actually got the boot shut. We're going to quickly put this back on. So this is just the panel for the rear, so you can actually see how it's going to neatly sit. All right, so there you go. That is very, very neat, and we can actually shut the bonnet, or the boot, sorry, and adjust the camera angle as you do it. So you'll probably have to do this as the boot is shut. So let's get out of here. Shut this up. Phew. And there you have it, guys. It's actually shutting up, and you can actually see the angle of the camera right there. So you're going to look at it. You probably can't see it because there's a bit of the glare here, but you can actually see any of the footage, and you adjust the camera angle. You can actually see the camera there. It's looking a little bit down. We probably do want to get it down if anyone's driving into us. But yeah, adjust it how you like it. You can do it from inside the car and look at it while you do it. So here we are, guys. We're inside the vehicle, and you can actually adjust the camera here. So there is a slight delay, but there you go. That would be up at the sky. You do want to make it look downwards because you do want to see if someone hits your car, and give it a point of reference so we can just see the bottom of the vehicle here. Okay, so it's very easy to see there and everything outside the vehicle. So nice and neat, very easy to do, very discreet on the rear, so it's not going to interfere with your footage, and that job is done. All right, so there you have it, guys. If you need to do a hatch vehicle, that is the correct way you should mount it. It should be nice and discreet like that through those rubber grommets. Now, I don't know if that's within most people's capabilities out there, but a couple of tools you're going to need is you probably need a screwdriver, a 10mm socket or a socket set of some sort. Probably need a multimeter or a test light. You're also going to need some wire strippers, some soldering iron. If you want, you can use quick crimps or little connectors, crimp connectors if you want to connect the wires that way. Or some people use fuse connectors if they want to do it on the fuse box, where you can double up a fuse. You can buy a lot of that stuff from J-Car in Australia or any car electronics store. You will need a cable tie to run some stuff through. You're probably going to need some tesa tape, some pry bars, and that would be, yeah, about all you're going to need to actually run that job. It will take you a little bit of time, but if you're up for a challenge, give it a go. Sedan vehicles are much, much easier because you don't have these opening windows, okay? You don't have to run through this sort of grommet part. You can actually just run along the side and stick it on the back window because there's no moving window. But there you go. Gives you a bit of an insight as to what a store would do and how your install should look. Clean all your handprints. If there's any hand marks on after you've finished, just use like a soap. Wipe any marks off just so it's nice and clean. Check all your rubbers are shut, and then test the functionality of your camera. But that was a Thinkware F770. The Thinkware F800 Pro is out there, is the next model up. There is some older models, the F750. Most dash cameras on the market actually wire the same way, okay? So that is a guide for you guys out there.